which is a relatively typical time for an interview. Some last closer to 10 minutes and some some last closer to like 45 minutes. Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel, Pixie Dusted Princess. In today's video, I will be talking about the third step of the application process, the phone interview. And although this can seem like a super scary step in the application process, it really can be very fun and very rewarding, and it's just your opportunity to shine for the recruiters and just show them that you are really interested in this opportunity and just really ready to be a Disney cast member. So if you are working on your application process, I suggest starting with my last video, which talked about the first two steps, the initial application and the web-based interview. And if you're coming back here after just watching that, thank you so much for watching, and hopefully your application process is going really well, and good luck to all of you who are working on their fall 2019 applications, because those are opening really soon. The phone interview. What a stressful thing to say. I know that personally, I am a very shy person, and talking on the phone stresses me out so much. So I was really worried about this process because phone calls, but it's really not as scary as it seems. It's definitely something you need to prepare for and research and just do that so that you feel more calm about the entire thing, but it's not something that you should be terrified of, you know? I know I was definitely so nervous, and I think that's a very real feeling. Like, if you don't feel nervous, like, good for you, because like that's really an accomplishment. But if you are nervous, it's totally normal, and everybody's nervous, but just know that it's all gonna be super great because the recruiters are so nice and they want you to succeed. So they're really gonna be asking questions that let you just brag on yourself a little bit in a very humble way and just show them why you'd be really great for a position at Disney. The first step to your phone interview is practice, because practice makes perfect. And I know that I definitely did spend a lot of time practicing for the phone interview. I might have spent too much time practicing, but I just knew that I would feel better about the whole thing if I was as prepared as I could possibly be. So I started off with watching a lot of different blogs. A lot of people record their phone interviews just so that you can get a feel for what they're going to be like. But I definitely watched a lot of those. So one thing I did that I think was super helpful is I went through a lot of different blogs and vlogs and wrote down a lot of the questions that they said they were asked, or possible questions they could have been asked, and I made like a master list of all the questions that I thought I could be asked. I made a lot of like just questions that every Disney College Program applicant could be asked, and then I focused on 3 or 4 of my high interest and moderate interest roles and questions specific to those roles that I thought I could be asked. So I will post a link to that list of questions down below in the little descriptor, and so hopefully that will be helpful if you guys are interested in doing what I did to just look at all those possible questions. I made a document where I went through each question and like typed out the ideal answer I would give for each of the questions, just so I already had in mind like what I would say, so I wouldn't be caught off guard and like blanking out when the recruiter asked me a question. And I went through all those, familiarized myself with the answers, like just kind of read through it a lot and made sure I was comfortable with what I wanted to get across. And then for the actual phone interview, I took all the questions, I wrote them down, and then underneath each one, I wrote these on like note cards, and underneath each one I just put like a bullet points for my answer, because you don't want to read off of your paper, because then you'll kind of sound like a robot, sound kind of scripted, and the recruiter really makes it feel like just a conversation between friends, because you love Disney, they love Disney, like everyone loves Disney, and it's just a really nice conversation, so you don't want to sound scripted at all. So I just knew that if they asked me a question, I was like, I have no idea what I was going to say. Then I could just like glance up at my little bullet points. I had them like taped on the wall in front of me. I could just glance up at the bullet points and just be like, oh yeah, okay, this is what I'm trying to talk about here. So I think that was really helpful. So definitely check out that link of questions if you are interested in looking at them. I also put up a note that was just like, be polite, say yes sir, no ma'am, just like really show that you're a polite and respectful person. I also put up a place where I could write down the interviewer's name because it's a very important thing. Well, it's not crucial, but I think it's definitely a tip to write down the recruiter's name when they say it at the very beginning of the interview, just so at the end you can be like, oh my gosh, thank you so much, it was a pleasure talking to you, all that, and like insert their name in there because it shows you're paying attention. And Disney's all about names, knowing people's names, getting to know and relate to the guests. So I think that's important to show them that you are also into learning people's names and being able to relate to them. It's just always nice to like be called by name because it shows that people really care about talking to you, you know? So I put a place for that on my note cards too. Step 2, like I said, is to watch vlogs. I think it's really important to see just like the order that questions go in, just the pace that the interview goes at. I know it kind of stressed me out to watch different vlogs because I was like, I'm gonna have to talk on the phone, like what if I don't sound as good as they do? I don't know, it just kind of stressed me out, but it was also just helpful to just know how things were gonna go. And then there's so many vlogs out there that are like, phone interview fail, like those ones I did not watch those because it would just like make me so stressed out because I was like, that's what I would do. I don't know, so maybe don't watch those until afterwards when you can be like, yikes, I don't know. But definitely watch like successful phone interviews because they are a really good example of what you can do to sound like a good candidate. I recorded my phone interview because this was before I decided if I wanted to vlog my program yet. I recorded my interview on my laptop because I was like, I might not even do anything with this, so I won't get out my camera, I'll just like record on my laptop. Turns out the microphone on my laptop is broken, so I have a lovely 28-minute visual of me talking on the phone. However, there's no audio, so maybe I'll insert that somewhere so you can see the nice visual, but it's really not helpful anymore. But that's another story. But there are so many good ones out there that you can watch to get like a good idea of what's gonna happen. Step 3 is the actual phone interview itself. You will have a time, like mine was, it was like 10:15 in the morning. Some people say to schedule yours more towards the beginning of the day so that recruiters are like fresh and like ready to listen to you. They haven't been asking the same questions, hearing similar answers all day, which is probably a very valid tip, but I don't think that if you schedule it later in the day that will hinder your process in any way, because the recruiters are obviously, they really love their jobs and are really interested in knowing what you have to say. If you want to schedule it earlier in the morning, maybe that could help you. Mine was at 10:15 and they say to be ready 15 minutes before to 15 minutes after your time, just in case the recruiters are running ahead or behind schedule. So that's kind of like a half an hour window of you just sitting there staring at your phone waiting for it to ring, and that's kind of stressful. But there's so many stories about people who like their recruiter never called, or like they picked up and accidentally hung up on their recruiter, and like even when things like that happen, like everything worked out in the end. So like obviously those are incredibly stressful and it doesn't happen often, so do not worry, like your recruiter will call you, but they are working to let you have the best interview process possible, so they're not going to be like, oh, like this person hung up on me accidentally, like that's it for them. Like no, they'll call you back, like it'll be totally fine. But just make sure you are available in that half an hour time period and that you're like in a quiet space, like all alone, just ready to talk to them on the phone, and you'll be good. The order that the interview goes in is first they will verify all your personal information, your name, your school, just make sure they have it in their documentation correctly. And they will also confirm that like if you want Spring or Spring Advantage or Disney World, Disneyland, they'll just make sure that everything you put for like your personal information and preferences in your application is correct. They won't ask you about your roles, but they'll ask about everything else, you know. Then after that, they'll kind of go through the Disney look guidelines about tattoos, piercings, hairstyles, just things like that. As long as you say, yes, I'm more than willing to take out my piercings and cover up my tattoos, like that's totally fine. They just have to have it documented. in their records. Then they will begin to ask you different questions about yourself, about your work experience, and about Disney, different things like that. So in my interview, my recruiter asked me about my previous work experience. She asked me to describe a situation in which I had handled a tough guest and was able to solve that situation. She asked me to explain a time when I had handled an emergency, and since I put that Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique was one of my high interest roles, she asked me if I was comfortable with touching children's hair and nails, which is something you do in the Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique. So like for that one I was able to say, oh, like I've been on a competitive dance team, I'm more than capable of like helping children with their hair and makeup and nails and everything, because that's something I've done throughout high school. It's just like such a conversation really that you're having with these questions, because your recruiters are so nice and they'll like comment afterwards and be like, oh, that's so cool, like dance is fun, I don't know, just stuff like that to make you feel more comfortable and at ease with the questions. So what I would say would be step 4 for the interview is at the end, when the interviewer is done asking you questions, to ask them a few questions, because at the end they'll be like, okay, thank you so much for answering my questions, do you have any questions for me? And you can be like, yes, actually I have a few questions. And I think it's important to ask questions at the end of the interview, because it shows that you're really interested in this position, you're interested in learning more, and I don't know, it just shows that you're like paying attention and like having questions, you know? So I asked my recruiter about the seminars you can take as a Disney College Program participant. It's like the Disney Exploration series. I asked how that like fit into the work schedule. I don't know, because I didn't know, and I was like, that's a good question. And then I also asked my recruiter, or my interviewer, I asked my interviewer how she got started working in the Disney company, and it was so cool because she was like, yeah, like I actually started with the Disney College Program too. She's like, my sister did it, so I decided to do it, and then she started doing seasonal work and then full-time work, and I was like, that's so cool, because then we could like relate. I was like, so Stacy was a good interviewer. And then at the end, since I wrote down her name, I was able to be like, thank you, Stacy, like it was a pleasure talking to you, and hopefully that left a good first impression. I was obviously very nervous, but it's kind of like a fun experience for my first interview to be so fun and like about Disney and happy. I don't know, it was just a really good experience, I think, because then it prepares you for having an interview like for any other job you have. Felt more like a conversation than an interview, you know? So my interview lasted 28 minutes, which is a relatively typical time for an interview. Some last closer to 10 minutes and some some last closer to like 45 minutes, and it all just depends on your interviewer and how many questions they have for you. Another thing I would suggest, which I didn't do and I kind of wish I had, is I was like, well, I want to work as like Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutiques, like obviously that's at Magic Kingdom, but you can, at the end when they ask if you have any questions, you can request that they write down like your preferred location. Like if you really want to work at Magic Kingdom, then you could ask them if they would write down your preferred park, and I didn't do that, and now I kind of wish I had, but like it's Disney, so everywhere's super great. But like if you really want one specific park or have like a specific location, you can request that they write it down in your files, and this could have a big impact, could have no impact, but if it's something you want to do, you can definitely do that, and they're not going to be like, no, like they're going to be like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll write that down. Like it's totally chill. So definitely do that if you're interested in one location that you'd like to request. Another thing I don't want to forget to say is that I also, at the end of my interview, like the next day or so, I wrote an email thanking Stacy for interviewing me and everything. I don't remember exactly what I said, but it's basically just a thank you email for my interviewer. And during your application process, most likely the Disney College Program recruiters will like tweet about the best way to send this email to your interviewer. For me, I just sent my email to the recruiting email or the questions email, whatever email they give you to contact them, and I just like in the subject line I was just like, thank you to my interviewer Stacy, and then I put like my email in the body and everything. I don't know, it It's not anything that will help you get in or not to the program, but I think it's just nice to write just a little email showing the interviewer that you're thankful that they spent their time interviewing you, and it's just a nice thing to do. So if you want to do that, definitely know that's an option. That's the phone interview, and I wish you all the best luck when you're doing it. Just know that even though it's scary, it's going to be totally okay, and afterwards, then the waiting game begins. But you'll just feel so relieved that it's out of your hands now, and there's nothing more that you can do, which for a lot of people is probably stressful, like more stressful because there's nothing you can do. But like for me, it's like, there's nothing to worry about because like I can't do anything myself, like it's out of my hands. So just know that it's all gonna be okay, and I'm just sending you all the pixie dust and all the magical wishes because I hope that your process goes really well. And thank you so much for watching these videos, and I hope my little tips that I've collected help you. And make sure to check out the link below if you want to see the question list I've formulated. Hope to see you guys real soon.